We have an amazing session waiting for us today. So we are so glad to have our friends back from Ford's Theater, Miss Trisha Patrick and Victoria Renzel. So thank you all so much for joining us again today.
So happy to be here. Trisha, I saw that your hand was up. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to echo the thunder from Wendy and let you all know that next week, Tuesday, we're opening the applications for our National Oratory Fellowship, where you too can continue to learn and join an awesome network of educators and learn how you can bring oratory into the classroom. That's all. Thank you. Victoria, back to you.
Love it. Awesome. I'm just going to go ahead and say that the NOF, the National Oratory Fellows Program, is unlike anything else that I have ever experienced in my 18 years of being a teaching artist. It is, I think, the most powerful professional development that I have ever witnessed. And every single time we have new folks come in, like I see tears in their eyes because they're like, I have found my people, right? That is just, it is such a wonderful program. It is a wonderful, I mean, just the social resource of getting to meet all these other teachers from around the world, but of course the professional resources that we all share and the teaching artists that are involved. It's an amazing group of people. And if this kind of work interests you, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the many ways that we use oratory today, please, please, please. Yes, and actually the first year from from Kentucky is working with me, Daniel Parks. He's in Lexington, and he's wonderful, and I just adore working with him. And his kids, his gifted fifth graders, are working on a podcast project with me right now. So that's just another way that we're integrating oratory into a curriculum, and the students are focusing on local issues that matter to them, everything from like urban development to stray animals in their community, all sorts of things. And it's just really, really cool for them to interview local experts and, you know, record themselves researching this topic and talking to experts about it and reflecting on it and how can people get involved and learn more. So that's just one little plug for the kind of oratory work that we do. Okay. Let me go ahead and share my screen and get all of this set up. All right. So, my friends, let me get my little picture back so I can see all of your beautiful faces here. Okay. Fantastic. Sorry for the siren in the background if you can hear that. This is what happens when you live in a city. So today we are going to be exploring more about oratory, more about getting our students to be persuasive, civil, and confident speakers. A quick overview of what we're going to be doing today. I just want to review super quickly the podium points, warm and cool feedback, and the rhetorical triangle that we worked on last week, especially for any of you who weren't here for that. We've got a little Thanksgiving activity that's oratory integrated. So I want to do that with you. And that's something you can take and do in your classrooms tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday if you like. Some tips for shy students. I got a lot of feedback that you all were interested in learning more about how to get students to be more confident. We're going to do a little brainstorming for some classroom applications. I'm going to share some with you. I'm going to send you off to brainstorm and come back and share with the group. And then we'll have a little bit of time for questions and reflection. So, you know, nothing to cover in an hour at all. Okay. So quickly, our podium points. These are like the sort of public speaking 101 tools that I use when I'm teaching oratory or the art of public speaking to students. This gives some language to what students are technically doing, things like how quickly or slowly they are speaking, what words or phrases they're choosing to make pop, as I call it, to stand out. Things like, are you making eye contact with your audience or not? How does that affect that connection with the audience? What kind of presence, what energy, what confidence are you bringing? Like the Beyonce factor, right? Are you bringing it? So things like that allow students to have a language for the next part of this, which is the warm and cool feedback. They can use those podium points if you're talking about public speaking to give each other warm and cool feedback. The warm and cool feedback protocol is something that we've developed at Ford's to give specific, kind, and helpful feedback. It doesn't have to be about oratory specifically. It doesn't have to be about public speaking. You can use this on writing. You can use this on science projects. You can use this on if you're teaching a music class and students are working on a piece of music, you can use this to like give each other feedback in the classroom. Or if you're watching, I don't know, if you're teaching a drama class and you're watching some monologues, right? And you are, maybe it's recorded professional actors and you're watching them. You can imagine that those people are in the classroom and practice giving warm and cool feedback to them. It helps so nobody's feelings get hurt, right? And then once you're getting better at the art of giving warm and cool feedback, then you can actually practice on students in the class, right? That's one way to scaffold it to get people comfortable with it. So these sentence starters and the podium points, all of that stuff, all of those links and things are distributed at the last workshop. I'm sure Wendy can make sure that everybody has access to all of that. The other thing that we talked about last week was the rhetorical triangle, or our good friend Aristotle over here, his 3 appeals. Rhetoric is really the art of persuasion. So we have the art of public speaking, we have the art of persuasion. Obviously, those oftentimes go together. They don't always. Sometimes rhetoric can be written as opposed to delivered orally. I like to have these sort of central questions and touch points in my head. Can I trust you? That's the ethos part of it. Prove it to me is the logos part of it. Give me some evidence, some kind of logic, some kind of reason, right? Why I should believe in what you're trying to persuade me of. And then the last part of it, and because we have little reptile brains that are basically controlling us, we're obviously persuaded most by emotions, by how we feel about something, the emotional connection, the empathy we develop maybe for someone, or how our imaginations are affected, thinking about what could be in a positive or negative way if we take this action that the speaker or writer wants us to do, right? So these main tools, podium points, warm and cool feedback, and the rhetorical triangle are sort of the cornerstones, if you will, of Ford's approach to oratory. These 3 tools can serve you in a multitude of ways, and you can build on them and continue to deepen both your understanding and the students' understanding of these things. So we're going to do a little activity. And Wendy, I'm going to ask you for your help again in putting folks into groups for these in the breakout rooms. So I'm going to give you all a little prompt. What's the best Thanksgiving side dish and why? We've got Thanksgiving coming up. Wendy in a minute is going to put you all into groups, little breakout rooms. I'm going to ask your group to come up with a 30-second pitch for the best one. Everyone must speak during this pitch. So you should figure out during your 5 minutes of time, not only what you're pitching and why, but figure out who's going to speak on what part of it, okay? I'd love for you to incorporate logos, ethos, and pathos. And because this is a silly thing and we're not doing actual research, like I don't expect anybody to look up facts about sweet potatoes on their smartphone and incorporate it. But hey, if you want to, go for it. It's okay to make up facts and evidence for this particular silly little thing. I'd love, of course, for everybody to use excellent podium points as they are presenting. And we're going to practice giving a little bit of warm and cool feedback to the groups after their presentations. Okay? Any questions about this project that I'm going to ask you to do? Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. Wendy's going to put you in your groups and I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So if you could be back at 18 after, that would be fantastic. Thanks, friends. really anything. If you are, I don't know, studying music history and you want to have a debate over, has Beethoven or Mozart had the most influence on musicians after their lifetimes, right? And you want to get into a debate about it, or have a presentation like this, or which I don't know, which 18th century musician was the most influential. And you can do this, adapt this activity for anything that you're working on in your class, really. So that's just one thing. I'm going to go into a little bit of tips for shy students. And I want to just quickly point to something, give some props to David and Robin in the beginning of the presentation, because Robin didn't speak, but that was okay. She still participated, right? Even though I said like everybody should speak, right? You all found a way to make sure that Robin was participating, right? Having her like demonstrate with the little dolls. And that can be a thing that you do for a shy student, right? Maybe you have certain caveats that you allow, right? Another thing that I love to do is just build this stuff into your regular classroom practice. Make it so that kids are actively speaking every single day in class. And that can be in small groups and discussions, right? That doesn't have to be up in front of the whole class. That can be with partners, that can be with small groups. If you get kids up to do a presentation, sometimes shyer kids are going to feel more comfortable if they're with a group as opposed to by themselves. So I often like to do those sort of group or partner things so they feel like they have somebody to lean on. It helps with like the moral support. I also love to get discussions going, or things that involve imagination where there's no right answer. So they don't have to worry about being wrong in front of the class when they're sharing things out, right? It's not like you're asking 2 + 2 equals, and the only obvious answer is 4, right? That's the only right answer. So if they say 5, right, they're wrong in front of the class, and that's going to embarrass them and cause them to shut down a little bit more. But if you're doing things that are sort of open-ended, asking for opinions, asking about their thoughts, talking about themselves, right, that kind of thing, there's no right answer there. So it takes some of that pressure off. I also love to acknowledge that nerves are real. Like 75% of the population has a fear of public speaking to some degree. So it's totally normal to be nervous when getting up in front of people and having to talk, right? The maybe unfortunate thing is that we have to do that throughout our lives. Unfortunate, depending on how you're looking at it, right? But just acknowledging that it's totally normal and okay to be nervous, right, can help deal with some of those fears that kids have. Oh, you're nervous? I'm nervous too. Cool. Right? And part of being brave, part of being, I'm looking to my like Harry Potter Gryffindors, part of being brave is doing something even though it's scary. And then you'll like when you get through it and you've come out the other side, you can go, oh wow, it wasn't that bad, right? So acknowledge the nerves, remind them that everything is going to be okay. Allow for vulnerability in the class. And one of the things that I love to do is model that vulnerability for students, right? If you are somebody who has a fear of public speaking, that can be really impactful for you to share that with your students, right? Or just sharing anything that is vulnerable about yourself allows for them to feel a little bit vulnerable too, right? Obviously, we don't want to overshare with our students, blah, 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 but we can also do activities within the class that allow for vulnerability, for them to share things about themselves. And you can do like, there's a ton of icebreaker activities out there where, like you can ask the kids about their thoughts on all sorts of different things, right? That have nothing to do with school or right answers or anything, and just get them to talk, get them to share something about themselves and foster that bonding, because kids will feel more comfortable getting up in front of each other if they feel like they have allies in the class, if they feel like these are people that they can trust. So I always encourage you all to create an environment where you're thinking about building the ensemble from the beginning of the class. You're thinking about instilling, and the ensemble is a theater thing, right? If you're working together as a group to do something, to put on a play or to whatever, well, you all are working as a group to learn things together and to grow as students, right? And so any kind of ensemble building activities that you can put into the class to allow for any kind of speaking and sharing and growth and vulnerability is going to create an environment where students feel more comfortable getting up in front of each other. And they may not feel comfortable with the people in the rest of their classes, but they might feel really, really comfortable with this particular class of yours because you've built that in from the beginning, right? So those are some tips I have for shy students. It's a little bit of psychology. It's a little bit of, the same kind of stuff you do every day as a teacher, just to reach out to kids and help them grow in their confidence, encouraging them, telling them the growth that you see, all of those kinds of things, letting them know that you support them, that you have their back, that everybody here is going to be supportive of them. Sometimes I say I treat my classrooms like Vegas. I tell the kids, like, what happens here stays here. Like, we're going to really support each other, right? We're not going to like talk about each other behind each other's backs outside of the classroom, right? We're going to be here and be supportive for each other. So, okay. For our last little bit of class, I'm going to share really quickly a whole bunch of oratory adjacent activities that you all can do. And then I'm going to ask you to brainstorm a little bit. Wendy will put you back into groups after I do this, and think about how you can apply stuff to your own curriculum. So I'm just going to run through these really quickly so we have some time. So I've already mentioned this a bit, but icebreaker and theater games that help with ensemble building. You can like Google ensemble theater building or ensemble building theater games and come up with a whole bunch of stuff, icebreaker games, all of that. Improv, doing some like basic acting improv stuff can be really, really fun because it gets kids out of their heads and just reacting and having fun. This is a little bit more intellectual, but paraphrasing a text, if you're working on something that is a little bit older or a little bit more challenging, having students put things into their own words, investigating the text, kind of analyzing it for things like connotations, right? The associations that we have with words and not just the dictionary definitions. That's an oratory adjacent thing because you're looking at language. Doing any kind of performance coaching for students, like if they are working on a presentation, giving them a chance to rehearse and get feedback either from you or their peers or both. And I like to go for when it's a teacher leading it, I like to go sort of beyond warm and cool feedback by like, if a student starts a sentence, for instance, and you notice them like rocking back and forth and it's really distracting, just pause them there and say, I'm noticing, or do you feel yourself moving back and forth? Sometimes kids notice, sometimes they don't, right? And get a friend to like stand behind them and just hold their shoulders while they say a line and have that friend step away, right? And see if they can keep that without the rocking back and forth. So little tweaks like that kind of thing. That's what I mean when I say beyond the warm and cool feedback. You can work on memorization strategies with students, right? That's part of a lot of good orators are memorizing the things that they're doing. So you don't necessarily have to have them like give a whole speech, but you can work on memorizing a little bit of text and delivering it. Tableau, which is the French word for painting. This is a strategy where you can have students create pictures to tell a story or to enact, like I often do this for like historical events, like tell the story of Lincoln's assassination in 5 frozen pictures, right? So students have to use their bodies to create 3 or 5 or however many pictures that you want to tell a story. You can use this for like fiction if you're like teaching a literature class, right? And they have like a short story, you can have them like dilute it to 3 events, right? And they have to create that. It helps them to demonstrate understanding in a different way and allows them to use some of those physical podium points like eye contact, presence, posture to help tell something and demonstrate understanding. Obviously, basic presentation skills are part of this. You can look at rhetorical devices, which are a little different than the rhetorical appeals. Rhetorical devices are things like repetition, alliteration, consonants, rhetorical questions, right? There's all sorts of fancy Greek terms like, pisma, like a barrage of rhetorical questions. You don't have to teach the kids the Greek terms, but like sometimes recognizing some of those things, metaphors, similes, all of that, that can be really helpful. And you can think about, if you're tying that into performance, how can you lift that imagery, for instance? How can you use the repetition tied in with emphasis on our podium points to help compare and contrast, right? You're doing some analytical things with the text, looking at the language there. DARE is describe, analyze, interpret, reflect. You probably have stuff like that. Like if you're, for instance, looking at a painting, right, or a sculpture, and using that as a bridge to a unit, right, that you're working on, I don't know, colonial America or something, and you have a painting that you want to look at, right? So having the students describe what they see, just cold facts, right? I see 3 figures. I see a child holding a red ball. I see a tree with 4 branches, right? And then going to the analyze and interpret. So what is that? What do you think that might mean, right? Why is the painter putting a tree in here? What does that have to do with this, right? And then reflecting back on what you see or asking questions, right? So how can you connect this to other things that you're studying, to stuff you've already worked on before, all of those sorts of things. Reader's theater is a really great strategy. There's a ton of great scripts out there, especially for any of you who are like history teachers, social studies teachers, that kind of thing. There's a ton of reader's theater. Obviously, that has connections to oratory since you're having to speak through things. Speech writing and speech abridging are always a part of oratory, of course. Something else you can do, embodying some fictional characters or historical figures, getting students to sort of use their voice and bodies to create characters. I have a social studies teacher that I work with, 8th grade, does a constitutional convention every year, and the students have to research and then embody their historical figure who attended the constitutional convention. So they learn about all these different figures, like what are their professions, what are their ages, do they have physical ailments, are they using like a cane, do they have glasses, how do they talk, are they energetic, are they shy, all of those sorts of things. You can do all sorts of different writing projects, things that are creative, things that are research-based. And speaking of research, the rhetorical triangle is a really fantastic way to do any kind of research, right? To evaluate a source, and is it something that I feel like I can trust? What evidence is it giving me? Is it helping me to feel something, to connect in some way? Students can always practice active listening and being a good audience member. You can have debates and mock trials in your class that kind of, builds on the sort of thing we were doing today. You can teach kids how to participate in group discussions, how to actually facilitate making sure that everybody's voice is heard and that you're respectful within these groups and that everyone is contributing. And so there's all those sorts of things that you can do that are oratory adjacent. And then the last thing, and this is, I'm sure, a really big one for all of us, especially in sort of states or counties or cities where there are the sort of culture war things happening, having civil discourse is such an important component of a classroom, especially if you are doing those sorts of debates or having any kind of controversial topic that you're discussing in any way, or if there's something where there can be opposing opinions and nobody's right or wrong, those sorts of things, being able to learn how to speak civilly, respectfully to each other and say, I hear you on this point. However, I disagree because, right? And not resorting to like name calling or what have you, right? So those are a whole bunch of oratory adjacent activities. If you're interested in this stuff, I highly recommend that you apply to the National Oratory Fellows, because we work with you looking at your curriculum specifically and figuring out how to bring oratory into what you are already doing. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just sort of thinking of creative approaches to what you are doing. So I'm going to give you all just like 2 minutes in your breakout room. So we're going to do it super, super quick. I'd like you to think about something in your curriculum that you are teaching What is an activity that you can do that involves speaking, active listening, providing feedback, and or making a persuasive argument? So Wendy's going to put you into groups, and I'm going to ask you to all come back at, let's just say 57 after. All right. So quick, an activity you can do. Wendy, thank you again for facilitating all of this and just welcome back. Welcome back. Hello, everyone. Hope you all had really productive brainstorming sessions. I'm going to encourage friends, just for time's sake, if you want to pop anything into the chat, I'm sure Wendy can save that. So if there's anything that you were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, and you want to put that in the chat, go for it.
Is that a new meeting?
Time meeting. Reach up there and turn the lamp on for me. Not that one.
Which one?
This
Hey,
one.
Robin, your mic's on.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Getting
That's
a little
all right.
help.
All good. All good. No worries. Does anybody have anything that they want to share that they brainstormed about curriculum wise, how you can use this? Any of these strategies?
Yeah, I have one that kind of popped up that I thought was unique. Well, right now I usually show Fantasia 2000, and I have like worksheets that goes with it while I'm out for whatever reason. So right now we're finishing up the movie, and I thought that this would be a great way to have my students work and pick one of the pieces that they thought the artwork matched the best with the music, and discuss it and get a it would be using their vocabulary and get their arguments, and as well as provide have the students provide feedback whether or not they disagreed with it. I think that that would be a really cool extension of the activity.
Yeah.
Love that, Cassie. I love that.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to share?
In our group one, we talked about, a lot of us had done mock trials. And for instance, my fourth graders used to do this to Peter Rabbit. And we actually had all the characters in the story. We had witnesses, we had the prosecuting attorney, defense attorney, we had the judge, we had the jury, and we actually go to the courthouse to actually do the whole trial, and they base their judgment on the evidence. We also our fifth grade, like some of us have done the wax museums where the kids represent historical figures, and they research and they create a speech, and then they're frozen and you push their button and they give their spiel as that character. So those are special too.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are brilliant, creative ideas. Fabulous, fabulous. So I know we are basically at time right now. I don't want to keep anybody longer than the hour, but if anybody wants to share before you don't feel like you have to. I'm going to say thank you very much if you need to go. I really appreciate you. But if you want to stay on for a few minutes, I would love if anybody wants to share any more of their brainstorms or just how do you plan on using these in your classroom. I'm happy to stick around.
I was talking about how, as the media specialist, I really wanted my kids to have a chance to do more than just read books or check books out. So I try to incorporate opportunities for them to take turns being an audience member versus a speaker, and what that feels like, and projecting their voice and using their teacher voice. So trying to kind of add some other things in there. And I think that kind of makes it a unique experience for them rather than just coming to library class and getting books.
Absolutely. Love that. Anyone else want to share anything?
That was a hard question.
Sure.
I guess I don't know. I'll chat it.
Let's put things into the chat. Anyone else want to share anything? Either a strategy that you were thinking about during your brainstorming session, an activity, or have any questions for me or anything like that?
Victoria, while they are thinking, I just want to say thank you so much. This was again just a wonderful session, and we do appreciate so much. I know there were several people in the evaluations last time that put, one thing I would still like to know or questions that they had after the session, and you were able to address those and then come back and touch on those in today's session. And so we really do appreciate your promptness and your follow through on addressing those in this session. And again, I cannot tell you all, please look at Ford's Theater's website. The teaching resources that they have are amazing. And we do appreciate you, Victoria, just again, just honing in these skills for us that we can then translate back into our classroom with our students. I think that, this is, again, what everyone has said. These are things that we kind of know, but just reinforcing those and then giving those applicable strategies that we can just use again in the classroom tomorrow even are just wonderful refreshers for each of us. So thank you so much. Thank you to Ford's approach on just allowing us to have better speakers and listeners in our classrooms. And then again, what you said about the civil discourse, that is wonderful. So we do appreciate you so very much. And I know there's some wonderful chat ideas coming in as well. So thank you all so much. I'm going to drop the evaluation back in the chat as well. So make sure that you complete that for today. And we do very much appreciate each one of you for staying on with us. And if you have any further questions, we will be on for a bit. But otherwise, you will have a wonderful, I know we've had a busy week. Renaissance, we've been on every day this week, and we have a session again tomorrow. Wait, what is today?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we have been very busy this week. So thank you all for sticking in with us, and just your continuing learning for students is so admirable. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Do too.
Hey, Wendy, stop recording.